Tonight, I have a story for you that holds a specific kind of fear. You can feel it the moment you realize the thing your teachers laughed at is real. I've always been fascinated by how stories outlive wars, empires rise, empires fall, and what's left in people's heads are half-true legends about that one battle or that one enemy no one wants to talk about properly. It's a strange thought, isn't it? You can spend your whole life training with perfect technology, perfect doctrine, and still lose everything to an old story you never took seriously. Because the idea at the heart of this tale isn't about bigger guns or faster engines. It's about what happens when an entire fleet discovers in real time that morale is more fragile than metal, that somewhere out in the dark there was a human warship built not just to win fights, but to break belief. So get comfortable, let your mind drift with me for a bit, because we're heading to a quiet, forgotten star system the Armada chose as a safe staging point. No threats on the charts, only dead human stations drifting like trash. At least, that's what they think. Out on the edge of their sensors, a mass reading starts to move. No signal, no hail. Just a silent hull sliding out from among the ruins. An old dreadnought with a name most of them only know from banned history files. UES Mourning Star. And one junior sensor officer is the first to see that the ghost story on her screen isn't fading away this time. The old story said humans were gone, not defeated, not conquered, just silent. Most young officers in the Armada did not believe the stories. They laughed at the idea of human warships that waited in the dark for years, saying nothing, moving little, watching everything. They said those stories were just fear wrapped in history, used to keep rookies from growing too proud. But deep in the fleet's hidden records, there were images that never got shown in public briefings. Fleets turned to drifting glass, planets left alone, not bombed, just abandoned in perfect orbit, after a human ship arrived and did almost nothing at all. Now, in a quiet, forgotten star system, far from bright trade lanes, the Armada gathered for a new campaign. Their ships were sharp and ordered, lights fixed, courses neat, systems humming in steady patterns. The officers stood tall, sure of what waited ahead. They believed the system was empty. They believed humans were broken relics of an old war. They believed fear was for weaker species. Out beyond the thin light of the pale star, a mass reading moved where no ship should be. No signal, no hail, just a silent shadow sliding out from a graveyard of dead stations. Its name on old human hull plates was UES Mourning Star. The Armada did not know yet that tonight, no planet would burn, no wide war would start. Instead, minds would bend, and a single quiet ship would teach a vast fleet that fear, memory, and morale can be heavier than any weapon. The star at the center of the staging system was tired. It burned with a dull, washed-out light, more gray than gold. Its planets were scarred rocks and frozen shells. Long rings of dust drifted in slow circles, left from moons that had broken apart ages ago. The system felt like a place the universe had almost given up on. To the alien Armada, that made it perfect. Their warships slid in from faster-than-light lanes and spread into neat orbits. Hulls of dark metal glinted faintly as they caught the thin starshine. Engines cut down to idle. Shield grids went into standby. The system became a waiting room for war. Here, far from trade routes and curious eyes, the fleet could repair, regroup, and prepare for the next phase of their campaign. In the outer reaches, ruins drifted. Old human defense stations hung like broken teeth around the orbit of a dead gas giant. Their surfaces were burned and pitted. Some were split open by past impacts, with ribs of bent alloy reaching into space. Turrets sat frozen, black and silent. Power cores were long dead. No life signs, no signals, only hollow shells. Min layers from the Armada had already done a careful pass through the system months before. Their reports were simple. No active defenses, no working stations. All human tech here was dead scrap from an old war. So the Armada took the system. They laid supply barges in the shadow of a thin, icy moon. They parked support ships in a ring above a small, rocky planet. Repair drones crawled across hulls, changing plates and swapping weapon pods. Carrier bays opened and closed in slow rhythm. As fighters were checked and cataloged, to the young crew members, this place was dull. To the admirals, it was safe. They were wrong. On the flagship, a sleek command ship named Varel's Spear. High Commander Jask Varel stood before a wide panoramic display. The system spread out in pale colors. Orbit lines, fleet positions, known debris fields, old human wreckage. Thin lines showed planned jump routes leading toward their next targets. Staging point secure, reported Navigation Officer Terrell. All squadrons accounted for. Repair timetables within expected limits. Good, Voro said, voice steady, eyes steady. He had the kind of presence the Armada loved. Tall, calm, strong patterns in his speech. He wore the silver segments of a veteran around his neck, each piece marking a major victory. There were many pieces. He had led fleets through crushing defenses and stripped rich systems clean. Under his command, the Armada had earned a reputation for perfect, cold order. They moved like a single body. They struck like a falling blade. The Armada was proud of that. Every warship in the fleet was tied into a shared coordination grid. It ran through relay ships, uplink towers, and command modules deep in each capital ship. With the grid, thousands of minds shared data in real time. No ship acted alone. No captain drifted off pattern. When the grid was at full strength, the fleet could fly in three-dimensional formations with meter-level precision. They could concentrate fire on a weak point in less than a second. They could shift from attack to defense before most enemies had even finished reacting to the first stage. They believed this made them untouchable. On lower decks, young officers swapped stories while off-duty, relaxing in dim rec rooms between long shifts. Most stories were about recent victories, planetfall images from conquered worlds, tactical puzzles they had solved with clean moves inside the grid. But not all stories were about glory. Archivist Silex Mar sat in a quiet archive vault near the center of the flagship. The room was round, lined with shelves that climbed up and overhead. Data crystals and memory slates were stacked in labeled rows. Soft blue lights washed over the titles. Battle Code 1123, Human Front Records, Restricted Commentary, Level Red. Select's job was to keep history in order and give context when high officers asked for it. Most days, that meant simple work. Cross-checking reports, filing battle logs, updating maps. Today, they studied forbidden things. On a private surface in front of them, a scene played in old, grainy detail. It was from more than a century ago during the last human war. An alien fleet, not unlike Voral's, had formed a proud wedge above a blue planet. A single human ship waited ahead. Long, heavy, dark. It moved so slowly it might as well have been standing still. The alien ships opened fire. Beams lit the space between them, a storm of bright lines. Energy washed over the human hull and left faint scars. Nothing more. Systems failed in the front ranks of the attacking fleet. Some ships spun, losing formation. Others fired out of rhythm as their coordination wavered. Then the human ship responded, not with a storm, with a set of thin, careful lines. Every line landed on a control node, a flagship, a key relay. The alien coordination grid broke, and with it their will to fight. Ships that were built to act as parts of a larger body did not know what to do when cut free. In minutes, the attack collapsed. The recordings stopped with a freeze frame of the human ship drifting away. Silent, Silex touched a note field and wrote, Taboo record number 27B, the Mourning Class. Behavioral pattern. Deliberate minimal fire. Goal. Mental break. Not physical wipe. They had read about humans since training days. Official lectures said humans were stubborn and old-fashioned, slow to adapt, too attached to their own myths of courage. But secret records told a different story. Humans had learned to turn their enemies' minds against themselves. They did not always strike first. They sometimes let fear do most of the work. Silex had requested special access to these taboo records when the Admiralty chose this system as a staging point. It seemed wise. After all, these were human ruins. Better to understand the ghosts that had built them. At first, the Admiralty had refused. Those files are kept quiet for a reason, Archivist a Senior Admiral's Council had said. Tales of human hunters do not help morale. Our people must see humans as broken, finished, unworthy of fear. But the sites we use from the old war may hold surprises. Silex had argued softly, not weapons perhaps, but symbols. Stories. The crews should know why this system used to matter. In the end, the Council had granted limited access. Just enough for Silex to advise on risk, not enough to share with the wider fleet. So Silex read alone. They learned about dreadnoughts like the UES Mourning Star, giant warships that did not need to rush. Heavy armor, low emissions. Advanced targeting that could wait and wait, and then cut a fleet's nerves with a handful of shots. These ships were not loud invaders. They were patient hunters, and more than their guns, it was their reputation that did damage. Alien crews began to see human shapes in every sensor glitch. A small sensor ping would feel like a gun at the back of the neck. Fear made fleets make mistakes. Mistakes made human shots even more deadly, a loop of terror. The record said, that is how wars ended, not with planet-killing beams, but with minds breaking. Outside the archive, in the flagship's bright command gallery, no one talked about those details. When humans came up at all, people rolled their eyes. Ancient enemies, a fighter squad leader said during mess. Our ancestors turned them to ash. Now they hide in holes or worship their past. Not worth thinking about. Yet we still do not settle in their old core worlds, a sensor tech replied, half-joking. The Council says those regions are unstable. Superstition. The squad leader snorted. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. In training halls across the Armada, there were sayings carved into the walls. Discipline is strength. Unity is power. The grid does not break. Young sailors repeated those words without question. They trusted the grid more than they trusted their own judgment. They had never faced an enemy that used their trust against them. In the forgotten system, support drones zipped between ships on tiny ion trails. Cargo arms swung like slow metronomes, moving crates of fuel cells and ammunition. The Armada's many lights flickered in quiet, ordered patterns, far beyond the edge of the main fleet cluster, where old human minds once ringed the system. A patch of darkness shifted. It did not broadcast. It did not shine. It did not speak. If anyone had checked the ancient human star charts, still stored deep in dead stations, they would have found a name entered for that orbit. Long ago, Anchor Point, Mourning Star patrol route. Lieutenant Catherine Nain had been on long-range sensor duty for 6 straight hours when the first strange reading appeared. Her station was a curved console set into the outer rim of the flagship's command deck. Thin projection lines showed local space in layers: heat, mass, motion, and faint radiation from old wreckage. Most of the time, it was dull work. She scanned the same arcs again and again, checking for stray asteroids that might drift into lanes, or hidden mines that older sweeps had missed. The system was supposed to be clean. The main dangers were boredom and sore eyes. She stifled a yawn, straightened, and adjusted her display focus. A tiny marker blinked at the edge of her range. Kethra frowned. New contact? Asked her partner at the next console. Probably a clutter spike. She said more to herself than to him. She expanded the sector. The marker steadied instead of fading. Reading. Large mass. Very low emissions. No regular engine pattern. That was not normal. Kethra tapped in a few commands and pushed the scan harder. The signal sharpened. Strange, she murmured. Her partner turned his chair. What is it? Could be a big chunk of station that broke loose. Kethra said slowly, but the mass distribution is clean. Too clean. Balanced. Like a built hull, not random junk. Her partner shrugged. Maybe it's some old human cruiser we missed. Dead reactor, drifting in a stable orbit, maybe. Kethra stared at the readings. But look at this symmetry. She flagged at the contact and sent it up to the main tactical board. Command deck. This is Nain at Outer Sweep 3, she said into her link, keeping her voice even. I have a new mass signature near the old mine ring. Large, low emission, possible dormant, hull. Request review. Copy, Outer Sweep 3, came the smooth reply from the watch officer, forwarding to tactical. Stand by. On the central display, a new symbol appeared at the system's edge. A gray diamond, tagged UN known mass pay. High Commander Varel glanced at it while deep in discussion with his staff about jump schedules. Another piece of garbage, asked Weapons Chief Harun. This system is full of dead metal. Tactical, Vorel asked. A tactical analyst brought up the details. Size profile fits a capital ship. They said slowly. Length and mass density suggest heavy armor, but the emissions are odd, almost baseline. No active heat plume. No grid link signal, no transponder. No transponder, no response to passive pings. So it sits there, Vorel said. Like a stone. Yes, High Commander, Vorel considered. Send a recon drone. Yes, sir. A small, stealthy drone detached from a scout ship and burned quietly across the dark. Its own drive was faint, hard to notice even from nearby. It approached the unknown contact with care, sensors wide open. On Kethra's screen, the drone's feed came in line by line. A shadow shape grew. Long hull, smooth armor plates, minimal external structures, no spinning sections, no huge radiator panels, the classic shape of a warship built to take hits and give them back. The drone's cameras brightened and corrected for low light. Letters came into view, stamped in deep lines on the side of the hull. The language was human, but Kethra had trained in basic warfront linguistics. She knew the alphabet. UES Mourning Star. Her breath caught. The drone transmitted the image directly to the flagship. The command deck went very still. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Officers watched the hull fill the main display. The human ship was not shiny or covered in guns. It just sat there. Dark, complete. That can't be active, someone said under their breath. It's a relic. Weapons Chief Harun forced a laugh. Probably a dead Hulk. The war left many of these. No power, no crew. Our engineers will enjoy cutting it apart. Kethra heard other voices on the shared channel. Is that a human dreadnought? I thought those were myths. Look at the armor. That thing was built to outlast planets. A quiet tension slid through the deck. No one used the word fear. Not yet, but people shifted in their seats. Hands tightened on consoles. Archivist Silex Mar, still in the archive, stared at the frozen frame now mirrored on their own small display. Mourning Star, They had seen that name before. In taboo record number 27B, they tapped a priority line. High Commander Varel, Silex said, trying to keep their tone completely level. Request permission to provide historical context on this contact. Morel did not look away from the main display. Go ahead, Archivist. Records from the last human war reference ships of this class as Mourning-type dreadnoughts, Silex said. They were responsible for several key defeats of fleets using grid-based coordination like ours. They favored minimal signal profiles, strong armor, and highly efficient strike patterns. Their main strength, however, was not just weaponry. It was psychological warfare. Varel finished, a trace of irritation in his voice. Yes, I have seen the summaries. Humans made scary ships and let rumors do half their work. But those were old times. Our grid is stronger now. High Commander, Silex said carefully. The presence of such a ship here, intact, suggests that assumptions about human withdrawal from this region may be. This fleet does not tremble at old human stories, Forel cut in. We are the Armada. We do not jump at shadows. Tactical, assign 2 cruisers and a screen of fighters. Approach the contact. If it powers up hostile systems, disable it. If it stays cold, tag it for later salvage. Orders rippled through the fleet. 2 cruisers peeled off from their holding orbits, engines flaring slightly brighter. Fighter wings formed around them, small points of light tightening into a formation. Across the Armada, shipboard local channels lit up with talk. You see that hull ID? Mourning Star. Like in the old camp stories, I heard those ships could sit for years in signal silence, just watching. No, they're dead. Humans can't keep tech like that running for centuries. That's what they said about their deep bunkers, too. Most of this chatter was technically against regulation. Non-essential talk during a potential contact was frowned on, but the officers in charge let it slide. No one expected real danger. It was just interesting. On Kethra's sensor board, the human ship's readings did not change. Range closing, said the lead cruisers. Captain, target remains cold. No detectable shields. No drive activity. No tracking systems pointing toward us. Put a test shot across its bow, Vorel ordered. See if that stirs anything. Kethra felt her chest tighten. High Commander. Select's voice came quietly through a side channel to Vorel. Human doctrine with these ships often involved feigned inactivity. They allowed enemies to believe they were dead until ideal angles presented themselves. Provoking such a ship without full analysis could, Archivist Vorel said, softer now but firm, our crews trust that we do not fear ghosts. If we treat every old hull like a living threat, we hand humans a victory they have not earned. We will not do that. Silence on the archive line. Out in the dark, the cruiser fired. It was not a full power blast. I do share fired. It was not a full power blast, just a test beam of bright energy, cutting across the void and striking near the front of the human hull. The light splashed over armor plates and scattered. For a moment, the UES Mourning Star was outlined in glowing gas. Then the glow faded. No reaction, no shield flare, Kethra reported quietly. No power rise, no weapon charge, no comm burst. Again, center mass, Vorel said. The cruiser fired a direct hit. The beam slammed into the dreadnought's midsection. Sensors lit with impact readings. When the light cleared, the human hull still sat there. A small dent. Some burned scoring. Nothing else. Kethra's station filled with data. High energy absorbed. Minimal transfer. Internal structure stable. It did nothing. Her partner said, eyes wide, across open channels. Voices flared. Sharper now. Did you see that? Full fire. No effect. That armor. It's still dead. Maybe it's just that thick. But what if... Someone did not finish the thought. The word human slipped across a shared channel from a junior officer on a destroyer who forgot to mute. Human hull with that much resilience. That's not a derelict. That's a hunter. The word spread. Human ship. Confirmed. A live human dreadnought. It jumped from ship to ship, carried by side chats, private links, brief remarks on squad channels. Each time someone said it, the air around their console felt a little thinner. On Kethra's board, tiny tremors showed in formation lines. Ships shifted their exact positions by small, nervous amounts. Not enough to break pattern yet. Orderly discipline, Vorel said, raising his voice so the whole command deck could hear. There is no sign of life. This is an old shell. Do not feed ancient legends. But legends were already awake. On a gunship near the front, a weapons officer stared at the dreadnought's image and spoke to their crewmate. My grandparent told me about these. Said a mourning ship once let an entire fleet fire until they ran their cores hot just to watch how they moved. Then it took out 5 flagships with 6 shots. That's just stories, the crewmate said, but their tone lacked force. Then how do you explain that hit we just saw? Back on the flagship, Silex watched the subtle shift in the crew's behavior, the way some hands lingered above controls, the way voices tightened. Fear did not have to show. Fear did not have to show. As panic so, no to be, until, ven, see, sama, it could start as doubt. The cruisers drew closer, well within engagement range. Now, fighters fanned out, nervous but steady. Prepare boarding teams, the lead cruisers, Captain said. We will cut into the hull if necessary. I want interior scans, mid-sentence. Kethra's console flashed red. Power spike, she called. Contact is active. Massive reactor surge inside the human hull. Emission signature, highly shielded, but it's there. The dreadnought moved. Not much, just a slow roll, turning its long axis until invisible weapon mounts aligned with the approaching cruisers. No warning, no broadcast, just a change in its posture, like an animal lifting its head. Kethra felt her throat go dry. That is not dead tech, her partner said. Fleet-wide, Silex said urgently into their link. Historical advise. Human mourning ships often respond calmly to first strikes, allowing opponents to commit deeper. Their psychology manuals suggest that surviving a harmless first attack increases enemy shock when they see their own weapons fail. It multiplies fear. The word fear landed heavier now. Vorel's jaw set. All forward ships maintain discipline. Our grid is intact. Our numbers are overwhelming. Target its weapon arrays. Fire in staggered waves. We will test its limits. Orders confirmed across the forward group. Dozens of beams flashed out, converging on the dreadnought. Kethra's sensor view bloomed with light. The UES Mourning Star took the hits. Armor flared, buckled slightly in tiny spots, but kept holding. No chain reactions, no explosions, no hull breaches. Then, at last, the human ship answered, with calm, focused strikes. Thin spears of hard light jumped from the dreadnought to the lead cruiser, to a relay frigate just behind it, to a small, almost unnoticed coordination node that floated between squadrons. Every shot landed with surgical accuracy. On Kethra's data feed, vital icons blinked to dark. The relay frigate went silent. The node vanished from the grid. The lead cruiser lost its command link and drifted out of tight formation for half a second. Half a second was more than enough. Other ships in its wing, tuned to move with it at all times, misread the sudden lag and corrected the wrong way. Patterns warped. Firing arcs overlapped. Fields that were never meant to cross interfered, yelled the tactical officer on the flagship. Sector 7 link unstable. Forward command chain disrupted. On dozens of lower decks, crew members grabbed for rails as artificial gravity wobbled. Displays flickered as the grid tried to route around missing nodes. Recenter, Forel barked. Alternate paths, now. Do not let a small disruption shake you. But the disruption was not small to the minds inside the ships. It hit the grid. A pilot gasped over a squad channel. It's not going for hulls. It's going for coordination. That's what the old story said. Another replied, they cut the nerves and let the body fall apart. The word stories carried more weight than any sensor reading. Kethra stared at her board. Her job was to watch, to report, to stay calm. But in the back of her thoughts, a quiet line formed. If a single ship can do this to the grid with just a few shots, what happens if it keeps going? She looked at the dreadnought. The UES Mourning Star did not chase. It did not rush the gap it had created. It just held position, weapons cycling on a slow, measured rhythm, as if it had all the time in the world. Across the Armada, discipline strained. Ships that had never known real fear began to feel a crack run through their perfect formation. The battle had hardly started. But on many decks, in many minds, it already felt as if something deep under their training had shifted out of place. High Commander Jask Vorel had led many battles, but he had never felt his fleet move like this. On the flagship's wide display, Formation lines shook in tiny, ugly ways. Ships that should have flown in perfect arcs twitched out of sync. The coordination grid's smooth blue web now pulsed with yellow warning marks where nodes had gone dark. The UES Mourning Star stayed in the same cold position near the mine ring. Its weapons were quiet for the moment. Its hull gave off almost no light. It looked calm. The Armada did not. Tactical update. Varel said, voice tight. Tertiary grid path is stable, replied the tactical officer, fingers moving fast over her console. But we have lost 3 relay nodes, 2 support frigates, and partial control of forward formations. Sector 7 is running on local links only. Local links, Vorel repeated. So they can still fight. Yes, High Commander. But their response time is slower. They must think for themselves. Without full grid guidance. Vorel's jaw clenched. He could see it already. The lines of fire between ships were not as clean as they should be. Some beams cut across others. Some moved late. In tight battle, those small errors could quickly grow into disasters. Forward groups will hold attack range but stop closing. Focus fire on the human ship's weapons mounts. Cut its ability to strike at our grid nodes. Do not break formation. Around him, officers repeated the orders down the chain. Their voices tried to sound steady. On a lower deck, Kethranane watched as new data poured in. Her screen showed the human dreadnought as a solid contact at the edge of the map. The waves of Armada ships around it looked less like a neat wall now, and more like a rough circle with dents. She heard mutters behind her. Why isn't it charging us? With armor like that, it could push straight through. Maybe it doesn't need to. Kethra shut out the voices and focused. Human ship holding position, she reported. No sign of engine buildup, weapon systems cycling on a slow pattern. It looks like it is watching. That last word slipped out before she could stop it. Forel glanced back at her, but said nothing. Archivist Selex, Maris stood in the archive vault, with the lights dimmed low, watching the same tactical display on a side wall. Their notes on taboo record number 27B floated above a table. Calm, engagement, targeted shots at coordination, use of enemy fear as tool. It was not just similar to the record. It was almost exactly the same. They opened a direct line to Vorel again. High Commander, Silex said, human doctrine with this class suggests that they will not press physically until the foe's morale has already cracked. They prefer to let fear and doubt hollow out resistance first. Vorel did not turn. Then they are wasting time, he said. This fleet does not break. Silex hesitated. With respect, sir, Today's crews have never faced a Holman dreadnought before. Their training lacks. We will give them something firm to hold on to. Vorel cut in. Clear, simple action. Simple action. No room for legends. I want every ship still and full grid, linked to fire in a timed strike. Yes, sir, the tactical officer said, marking countdown. All units, lock target coordinates on human dreadnought. Do not act early. Fire on my mark. Across the Armada, captains acknowledged. On a gunship near the front, a nervous pilot spoke over squad comms. You think full volley will do it. If it doesn't, nothing will. The squad leader replied. Stay on pattern. Trust the grid. But trust had already been shaken. On a destroyer whose relay link had gone out earlier, local officers argued. We're on partial link only, said the local commander. We might not get the timing right. If we don't fire, a gunnery officer answered, well, stand out as cowards. And if the volley fails, well, stand out anyway. What if the humans are waiting for us to cluster all our energy at once? Someone else added, what if they're planning to track back along our beams? That's not how the physics works. The gunnery officer snapped. But the doubt was there now. On channel logs, more small side talks appeared. Most were just a few words, but each short line carried weight. Human ship still not talking. It doesn't need to. Feels like it's laughing at us. Back on the flagship, the final seconds ticked down. 3, 2, 1. Mark called the tactical officer. The Armada fired. Hundreds of beams cut forward in one mighty wave. For a moment, the dark side of the mine ring became bright as day. The dreadnought's hull was lost behind a wall of energy. Kethra's sensors screamed with overload warnings. She filtered the data as best she could, hands moving on instinct. Numbers rolled past her eyes. Impact levels, frequency spreads, cross-phase interference. Hold, Vorol said softly, watching the flaring spot where the human ship waited. The light began to fade. The UES Mourning Star was still there, scored, blackened in places. A few plates had warped slightly where the fire had hit hardest. But its shape was the same. Its posture was the same. Its reactors still burned steady inside, just as strong as before. It tanked the full volley, Kethra said, almost unable to believe her own report. Armor intact. No critical damage detected. On 100 ships, that message repeated with tiny delays. It took everything, full grid fire, and it's still alive. That's not possible. On the flagship, some officers' hands shook now. They quickly pulled their fingers back from the trembling controls. All ships maintain discipline, Vorel snapped. We did damage. It is not invincible. But no one had seen the human ship so much as shudder. The fear that had been soft and quiet before grew sharper. On a patrol frigate, a junior crew member could not hold back. How are we supposed to fight something like that? They said over an open room channel, forgetting their mic was live. It's not a battle, it's a test. Were the test, the comment jumped through the grid, tagged a stray chatter. Normally, such clips were filtered. Today, with parts of the grid broken and routing tables confused, the lines slipped into unexpected places. A pilot on the far side of the fleet heard it. A deck tech on a carrier heard it. Kethra heard it. The idea, were the test, landed like a stone in still water. If the humans were testing them, what did that mean? that the dreadnought felt no real danger, that it saw the Armada as practice. Archivist Silex watched the crew's body language on various feeds. Shoulders hunched. Eyes flicked to side monitors more often. A few people glanced at old comfort charms tucked into their uniforms. Little things they had not thought about in years. This is the shift, Silex muttered to themselves, the moment when fear stops being just a feeling and becomes behavior. On the display, the UES Mourning Star finally moved with purpose. Not a charge, not a rush. It advanced a short distance, just enough to tighten angles, and rotated until several of the Armada's command layers lay in a neat line from its bow. Human ship movement, Cathra reported. Small vector change. It is orienting toward our inner coordination ring. Pull the ring back. Vorel ordered. Spread the command nodes. Do not present a straight line. Orders went out. Some ships moved late. Some captains hesitated, unsure if they should stick to the original patterns or follow the new order that had arrived with a slight delay thanks to damaged grid paths. In that hesitation, the Mourning Star fired. Thin, bright lines jumped across the dark. They did not go for the biggest ships. They went for the ones that mattered most to the grid. A central coordination barge, a timing beacon that kept the fleet's internal clocks aligned. 3 shots. 3 dark icons where there had been lights. The Armada's web suddenly lost deeper layers. Sections that had been held together by precise timing lost that timing. Shields that had been tuned to overlap perfectly now left small, ugly gaps between them. Grid coherence dropping, shouted the tactical officer. Sector 3 and 9 have gone to fallback protocols. Some units are lagging by as much as... Do not give me numbers, Vorel said through clenched teeth. Give me actions. What do we do to stabilize? No signal. What do we do to stabilize? No signal. Local captains will need to assume more direct control, she replied. Less reliance on grid pathing, more independent judgment. Independent judgment meant variance. Variance meant loss of pattern. And pattern was what had always made the Armada stronger than its foes. But their enemy today was not like their past foes. Very well, he said. Signal all captains. You are authorized to break from pure grid formations when necessary. Use your own tactics within your sectors. Maintain overall objective. Destroy or disable the human ship. On the hull of a midline cruiser, Captain Raylan read the message and felt an odd mix of fear and freedom. So we think for ourselves again, he said to his bridge crew. Feels like old times. Or again, he said to his bridge. Do we even know how? Asked his first officer, half joking but half serious. We'll have to learn fast, Raylan said. Bring us around on a wide arc. Let's try to hit that thing from below, where its weapon coverage might be thinner. On another ship, a younger captain froze. No grid script, no step-by-step orders, just their own mind against the legend outside. What do we do? Their navigator asked. I need a moment, the captain said, staring at the live feed of the dreadnought. Their hands hovered above the control keys but did not move. Across the fleet, differences like this multiplied. Some ships became aggressive, lunging forward with short, sharp burns, trying to circle the human ship. Others fell back too far, letting empty space grow between them and their assigned neighbors. Gaps appeared in what had once been a smooth ring of metal and fire. The UES Mourning Star did not chase the bold ones. It did not punish the timid ones. Instead, it watched for where those choices hurt the grid most. On Kethra's screen, a new pattern emerged. She saw that every time a ship edged too far away from its assigned sector, the human ship would send a single, precise shot toward a small relay drone or support unit near that sector. "High Commander," she said, choosing her words carefully, "it is not fighting us like a normal enemy. It is hurting us. Every shot is aimed at keeping the grid more broken." Silex opened a channel. Historical match. Humans learned to see grid-based fleets as single animals. They did not think of many ships, but of one body with many parts. They went for tendons, not muscle, joints, not armor. Our own strength is working against us. On fighter decks, pilots who had never flown without full grid support struggled. "My targeting fix won't sync." One called, "Use manual." Ground control answered, "I haven't used manual since training sims." "Use it now." Some did fine. Some did not. Some did not. A squad of fighters that rushed in too close found themselves without proper cover from overlapping shielding patterns. Because the shield coordination barge had been one of the first ships the human dreadnought had destroyed, the Mourning Star sent a handful of shots through that weak zone. 2 fighters vanished. A third spun away, crippled. The rest broke off, their discipline gone. "They're just toying with us," gasped a surviving pilot over an open frequency. "They could have taken us all. They're choosing targets. They're playing with our structure." That line cut deep. On the flagship, Forel felt control slipping a centimeter at a time. "This is not a full defeat," he told himself. "We still have numbers. We still have firepower. We can still kill that thing." But could they, while their crews believed the opposite? He turned to communications. "Fleet-wide broadcast. Put me on every primary bridge." "Yes, High Commander," the officer said. "You are live in 3, 2, 1. "Crews of the Armada," Forel said, standing straight, shoulders squared. "You face an enemy built to frighten you. That is its design. That is its trick. Do not give it what it wants. Our grid may be damaged, but your training is not. You are not children. You are officers of the greatest fleet in known space. In known space. Act like it. Fight like it." Some listened and felt strength return. Others heard only a leader trying to talk them out of something they felt in their bones. On a smaller cruiser near the rear, a junior helmsman leaned toward his captain. "If he has to tell us not to be afraid," he said softly, that means he is afraid too. Up on the flagship, while Vorel's speech still hung in the air, the UES Mourning Star fired again. This time its targets were larger. One shot took out a battleship that had been serving as a backup command relay, punching straight through its main tower. The ship's lights went out in an instant, then flickered in a sad failing pattern before dying completely. Another shot hit a carrier's central bay, not enough to destroy the whole ship, but enough to send flames and atmosphere spilling into space. As fighters were hurled out of broken launch tracks, the third and fourth shots were aimed closer to the flagship. At two of its nearest escort ships, which carried vital communication nodes, both escorts flared and went dark. The flagship shook as the grid rerouted in a panicked mess. "Primary escort layer down," shouted the tactical officer. "High Commander, we have lost many of the redundancies around your position. We are more exposed than planned." The thought spread quickly, even if no one said it out loud. The human dreadnought was not just hitting any targets, it was clearing the space around Vorel. Kethra saw it too. "It is isolating the flagship," she said quietly to her partner. "Why?" he asked. "Because if it cuts the head," she said, "the body will fall apart faster." Archivist Silex pressed fingertips against the cool metal of a data shelf. Taboo records had warned of this. Humans learned to target command structures not just to remove control, but to strike at morale. When a fleet saw its leaders fall under precise, calm blows, fear spread like fire. "High Commander," Silex said, "on a private line, the human ship is focusing on you. For your safety and the fleet's, consider pulling the flagship back, handing live command to a distributed council. That will give the dreadnought no clear, single head to aim at. Retreat the flagship in front of the entire Armada," Vorel said, almost laughing. "Let every captain see me flee." "Not flee," Silex urged. "Reposition." Humans are reading our culture as well as our tactics. They know how much we tie our identity to visible leaders. Do not give them that lever. "If I move," Vorel said, "they win without firing another shot." "Archivist, I will not be remembered as the High Commander who ran from a single ship." He cut the line. Silex stood in the quiet archive, hearing only the low hum of drives through the floor, and knew that the battle had just tipped further toward the humans. On decks across the fleet, discipline kept breaking in small, quiet ways. A sensor officer delayed passing on a target lock because their hands shook. A captain ordered a retreat from their assigned position without permission, convinced they would be next if they stayed. A squadron leader muted Vorel's channel so their pilots would not hear the fear in the commander's latest orders. No single act broke the Armada. Together, they did. The UES Mourning Star seemed to sense when a section was weakest. Every time a gap opened, every time a cluster of ships lost coordination, a few more precise shots came. It never sprayed fire. It never wasted shots. Each beam had a purpose. Destroy that relay. Break that shield link. Silence that captain who was still holding their sector too well. Look at this pattern, Kethra said to her partner, pointing at the map. It is not fighting ships. It is fighting minds. On a gunship, a terrified gunner shouted. We can't beat this. We're not fighting a ship. We're fighting a story. The line crossed multiple channels before someone managed to cut it. By now, even the bravest crews felt it. Every time they fired, and the dreadnought took the hit and remained calm, it was like hitting a wall that refused to move. Every time it fired back, and a critical part of the grid went dark, it was like losing a piece of their own body. Numbers still favored the Armada, but will did not. On the flagship, Vorel stared at his reflection in the main display's dark glass for a brief second. He saw a tired commander, eyes harder than they had been at the start, shoulders a little lower. He thought of the young officers who had grown up hearing humans were broken. He thought of the Admiralty's choice to hide certain records, to protect morale. Maybe that had only made this shock worse. High Commander, the tactical officer said carefully, we are reaching a point where continued engagement will only increase damage to the grid and to crew morale. Recommendation: fall back to outer orbits, regroup, relink, and reconsider strategy. We can frame it as a tactical reset. Around them, several officers held their breath. If Vorel gave that order, it would mean admitting that a single human ship had forced the Great Armada to retreat, even if they did not use that word. Vorel looked at the image of the UES Mourning Star again. Still calm, still watching, from somewhere deep inside, anger surged up, mixing with fear. If we run now, he said slowly, we tell every cadet in this fleet that humans own our fear, that if they just show up, we fold. He shook his head. No. We will not fall back. We will prove that this ship can be destroyed, even if it costs us. Kethra heard that last line and felt a cold weight settle in her chest. Even if it cost us. New orders going out, her partner said softly. All remaining ships to advance and attack on human ships' position. Around the dreadnought, the broken ring of Armada ships started to close again. It was not as neat as before. Gaps and irregular shapes still showed, but the intent was clear. They were going all in. Archivist selects closed their eyes for a moment. Taboo records had predicted that too. Human strategists had written that against grid-based enemies, the final stage often came when a commander refused to accept a limited loss and instead drove the entire force into a situation the dreadnought had already shaped. That was when the quiet ship finished its work. On the human bridge, Captain Ria Sato sat in a dim, steady glow, watching her battle map. While the Armada roiled and strained, her crew moved with small, precise motions. Forward groups are committing, her tactical officer said. Grid coherence low. Many independent actions. No unified pattern, good Ria said simply. Prepare next volley. There was no triumph in her face. No joy, just focus. We have their behavior curve, her operations chief added. Shy, Kay said. Fear indicators high. Command strain, visible. If we take out a few more key ships, collapse will follow without need for extermination. Ria nodded. "Then that is what we do," she said. "Minimal force, maximum effect." Back on the flagship, Kethra's sensors painted the final approach. Armada ships surged in all at once now, some too fast, some too slow, some firing early, some holding shots too long. The neat ring dissolved into a chaotic storm. The UES Mourning Star did not back away. It let them come. Then, with simple, calm timing, it began to fire in a slow, even rhythm. Each shot a sentence, each target a word. A relay cruiser here, a brave captain's flagship there, a stubborn flank ship that had been keeping a portion of the grid alive. Piece by piece, the Armada's ability to act as a whole melted away. Ships started to collide. Not big crashes, but glancing hits as firing arcs and flight paths crossed without the grids. Tight watch, shields misaligned and sent beams into friendly hulls. Some ships panicked and fired wildly at any motion near them, hitting their own fighters. Friendly fire events increasing, Kethra reported, sick at heart. Grid cannot correct fast enough. On many bridges, captains tried to pull their ships together, yelling for focus, for order, for courage. But their crews had seen too much. They had seen their best shot do almost nothing. They had seen their leaders' escorts burned away. They had heard the lines of fear passed through their channels. The human dreadnought did not need to destroy them all. It only needed to make them destroy their own unity. By the time the Armada realized this, it was too late. Vorel stared at the mess on the display. It no longer looked like a fleet. It looked like scattered lights around a calm, dark center. He thought about ordering a full retreat. Then, but already, some ships were pulling back without orders, engines flaring hard as they fled for the safety of outer space. Others fought to the last, either from duty or panic. The Armada's greatest strength had turned into its greatest weakness. Their linked control and tight patterns had made them deadly when calm and united. Now, with fear inside the links, the same system spread doubt, faster than any signal silence would have. The UES Mourning Star did not chase the retreating ships. It let them run. Its guns slowed. Its posture relaxed. The battle, as the Armada would record it later, ended not with a final blast, but with a long, confused unraveling. High Commander Jask Vorel stood in the middle of his shaken command deck, listening to overlapping reports of lost ships, broken grid lines, and captains begging for clear orders that no longer mattered. For the first time in his career, he had no battle plan left to give. In the quiet that followed the worst of the firing, a thought moved through his mind, sharp and bitter. We did not lose to their guns. We lost to what we believed about their guns. Outside, in the gray light of the forgotten system, the Armada scattered, and the human ship waited, watching as its work reached the last stages without any need for a killing blow. The firing stopped before anyone said it was over. There was no formal surrender, no clear last shot, just a slow fading of beams as ships pulled away, or spun without orders, or drifted with damaged drives. From a distance, the great Armada now looked like broken beads, scattered around a single calm stone. The UES Mourning Star held position near the old mine ring. Its hull was scarred but whole. Its engines glowed with a steady, patient burn. It did not pursue the retreating ships. It simply stayed. On the flagship, the command deck felt smaller now. Screens flickered with half-empty grids. Many icons that had glowed bright at the start of the day were gone. Lines that had once shown perfect coordination were now just thin traces to a few nearby ships. High Commander Jask Vorel stood very straight, but the muscles in his neck were tight. He watched a group of cruisers burn hard for the system's edge. "Those captains are withdrawing without orders," the tactical officer said quietly. "Log them," Vorel answered. "Later, the Admiralty can decide if they were cowards or simply sane." There was no bite in his voice now, only tiredness. On Kethranane's screen, the fleeing ships were small dots, shrinking fast. "They're not even keeping formation," her partner said, "just running." "Can you blame them?" Kethra asked. He did not answer. She studied the human dreadnought. It had every chance to cut down the fleeing ships. Their backs were open, their grid links were weak. They would never see it coming. But the UES Mourning Star did nothing. "It's letting them live," Kethra said softly. "Why?" her partner asked. "Because it already won," she replied. Archivist Silex Mar watched from the archive vault, arms folded tight across their chest. Taboo records had spoken about this part too. Humans, once they broke a fleet's will, often chose not to destroy every ship. They wanted survivors. Survivors carried stories. Stories traveled faster and deeper than any official report. Silex opened a channel to the command deck. "High Commander," they said, "the human ship is not pressing for total destruction. This is deliberate. They want memory to spread." Vorel stared at the calm dreadnought. "They have made their point," he said, "but I will not allow them to write the story alone." "Sir," Silex asked. Vorel turned away from the main screen. "Signal remaining ships. Order them to hold current distance. No more attacks. No more advances. We will not feed this any further today." Communications sent the order. Some captains obeyed at once, grateful for any clear instruction. A few were already too far and kept going, eager to vanish into faster-than-light lanes. On human channels far away in the quiet bridge of the Mourning Star, Captain Rhea Sato stood over a smooth, hollow table. Enemy formations collapsing, her tactical officer said. Many ships leaving the field. Remaining units are shaken and disorganized. We could take more if we press. Rhea shook her head. "We have done enough," she said. "This was never meant to be a massacre." Her operations chief nodded. "We have hit their beliefs harder than their hulls. Their grid doctrine will not recover from this soon." "Good," Rhea said. "Then we have bought time for others. Begin energy drawdown. Prepare final transmission." Her crew moved with the same quiet calm they had held from the start. For them, this was not glory. It was duty. They belonged to a human force that had changed over the past centuries. Once, human fleets had fought in huge, loud battles, losing and winning with heavy cost. Later, they had learned that breaking mines could sometimes protect more lives than breaking ships. War had become less about numbers and more about messages. Out in the dim gray light, the UES Mourning Star brightened its calm array. For the first time since it had appeared, it reached out on open channels. Every remaining Armada ship heard the signal request. On the flagship, an officer looked up in shock. "High Commander, incoming broadband transmission from the human dreadnought. It is addressed to all ships." "Put it through," Vorel said. Some part of him did not want to hear it, but another part knew this moment would be written in every history file. For the next 100 years, he needed to face it. The main display flashed. No image came, just a simple text translated by standard systems into the Armada's language. The words were few. "Humanity remembers." The message sat on every screen, large and clear. On a gunship, a pilot stared at it, heart pounding. "Remembers us?" A deck tech said. "Remembers this place." On a carrier, a medic whispered. "Remembers the old war, remembers what we did." And they waited. Kethra read the words again and again. "Humanity remembers." Not "humanity forgives." Not "humanity returns." Just remembers. It was a promise that they had not forgotten. The last time the Armada came to human space. It was also a warning that humans had changed, not into loud conquerors, but into something patient and watchful that could sit in the dark and choose its moments. On the flagship, Silex felt a chill. "This is what they wanted," they said softly. "To no one, not just to break ships, to plant this line in our minds." Vorel's hands curled into fists at his sides. He understood, too. This short message would spread throughout their empire. Crews would repeat it. Children would hear it from parents who had served here. Historians would argue over what exactly humanity remembered and what they planned to do with that memory. "Can we jam it?" the tactical officer asked, almost desperately. "It's too late," Vorel said. "It already went through our grid. Every ship has it logged. Every storage unit has it saved." On the human bridge, Rhea watched as confirmation pings showed that the message had landed across the field. "Transmission delivered," her comm officer said. No reply. "We did not send it for a reply," Rhea said. "We sent it for the future." She looked at the map one last time. "Shut down visible weapons," she ordered. "Shift to signal silence profile. Prepare to re-enter deep patrol routes." "Yes, Captain." The UES Mourning Star began to dim. Its weapon ports cooled. Its active signals faded. Engines rotated to a slow, steady vector that would take it back into the thin, dark space. Between charted routes, Kethra watched as the huge hull turned, showing its scarred side to the Armada, then its distant, armored stern. "It's leaving," she said. Her partner blinked. Just like that," she said. "It never wanted our wrecks. It wanted our fear. And our respect." Selex added quietly. Over the internal channel, do not forget that. No human voice came to taunt them. No final shot struck the flagship. The dreadnought glided away, shrinking slowly on the sensors until it dropped into faster-than-light transit and vanished from local space. For a long time, no one on the flagship spoke. The system felt even emptier than before. The tired star still burned. The old ruined stations still drifted. But now, there was something else hanging in the space between ships. Memory. High Commander Vorel finally broke the silence. Status, he said. Kethra checked her displays. Approximately a third of our ships destroyed or disabled, she reported. Her voice was flat. Many others with serious damage. The grid is functioning only in fragments. Morale indicators low. Understatement. The tactical officer muttered. Vorel ignored it. Begin search and rescue for damaged ships, he said. Recover as many crews as we can. We will withdraw to a safer system once we have accounted for survivors. Sir, communications said, what shall we record as the official cause of engagement failure? The easy answer would be unexpected enemy technology, armor beyond prediction, tactical surprise. He could blame hard facts and pretend this was just a problem of metal and math. He thought of saying that. Then he thought of the single message on every screen. Humanity remembers. He let out a slow breath. Record that we underestimated the psychological impact of this enemy, he said, and that our reliance on the grid made us brittle when fear entered the links. Note that a single ship using calm, precise strikes was enough to turn our strength against us. The room was very quiet. Admitting this in an official log meant it could not be buried as rumor. It would live in real history files for Silex and others to study. Silex felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief, permission to add context to the historical record. High Commander, they asked. Granted, Vorel said. Recommend that future doctrine treat human forces not just as physical opponents, but as mental ones, Silex said. They use psychological warfare as a primary tool, not a side tactic. Morale planning must be seen as much a weapon as armor and guns. Vorel nodded slowly. Do it, he said. If we survive, the next generation must be better prepared than we were. On a lower deck, Kethra leaned back in her chair. Her hands ached from gripping the console too hard. Her eyes stung. You okay? Her partner asked, but he'll never look at a dead system the same way again. She thought of training days, when instructors had said humans were broken, stuck in their past. Now she knew that sometimes holding on to the past could be a kind of power. Humans had remembered an old war. They had built a ship that could carry that memory like a weapon. And they had learned to use fear as a shield, not just as a blade. Far away, deep in human space, strategists would receive the Mourning Star's full battle log. They would study every timing choice, every shot, every small reaction in the Armada's movements. They would see how little physical damage had been needed to cause such a wide collapse. They would see proof that a single ship moving with patience and care, could stop a massive war from starting at full scale. On human councils, some people would argue for more ships, like the Mourning Star, dreadnoughts built as symbols, as much as weapons. Others would warn that living by fear could turn humanity into something as harsh as the enemies they fought. But no matter which side spoke louder, no one would ignore what had happened in the forgotten system. They would see that power in the late 27th century was not just about who had more guns. It was about who could shape belief. Back in the gray staging system, salvage drones began to leave the remaining Armada ships, moving toward wrecks that still held living crew. Tugboats pushed damaged hulls into safer orbits. Kethra stayed at her station, tracking signals guiding rescue craft, doing her job. But in the quiet moments between calls, her mind went back to the simple message on her screen. Humanity remembers. What do we remember? She wondered. She imagined old battles, burned cities, fleets shattered. She imagined human admirals watching from the dark, making notes. Learning San, changing, she realized something else too. Stories were not just tools of humans. The Armada had its own stories now. Crews would talk about the day a single human ship broke their great grid. Some would twist the tale to blame bad luck or a foolish commander. Others would admit the truth, that fear had run faster than orders. Archivist Silex Mar knew their work had just changed forever. They would have to bring taboo records into open training. They would have to teach cadets about human patience, human dreadnoughts, and the danger of letting myths grow in secret. Secrets gave myths power. Sunlight could take some of that power away. Silex opened a new file in the archive, gave it a clear title, and began to dictate. Engagement at Forgotten Staging System, year 2680, they said. Subject first confirmed modern contact with UES Mourning class dreadnought. Outcome, major Armada defeat with limited physical losses compared to psychological impact. Lessons learned. Their words would shape how their people thought about humans for a long time. In deep space, the UES Mourning Star slid through faster than light currents, far from any grid. On its bridge, Rhea Sato watched the silent stars. Do you think they understood our message? Her operations chief asked. They will, Rhea said. Maybe not today. Maybe not in the report they send to their admirals. But when they are alone, when they sit in a quiet room and think back, they'll remember how they felt when their weapons failed. And what about us? The chief asked. What do we do with what we remember? Rhea thought about the graves left from the last war, about human colonies burned, about the long years of rebuilding, about how easy it would have been to choose a path of pure revenge. We remember who we were, she said. We remember what war did to us. And we try to build something better. If we can win without burning worlds, we should. She looked at the dark around them, but we also make sure no one thinks we are gone, she added, because forgetting us was their mistake. Because forgetting us was their mistake, the Mourning Star's lights dimmed again as it slipped back into signal silence. No broadcast, no trace. Just a quiet hull sliding through emptiness, carrying old lessons forward. In the years that followed, those few hours in the forgotten system would be studied in academies across many worlds. Teachers would point to how the Armada's perfect coordination turned into a trap when fear spread through its shared links. They would show how a single calm ship with a clear plan and a strong understanding of the enemy's mind could unmake a force that seemed unstoppable. They would say that this marked a turning point, a time when warfare moved even more toward shaping minds, not just destroying metal. For the survivors who had been there, it was not theory. It was a memory. For humanity, it was proof that patience and precision could guard a fragile peace better than any storm of guns. For the Armada, it was a warning that strength without understanding could fail in a single quiet system, far from home. And for anyone, human or alien, who stood under lonely stars and thought about power, the lesson would remain simple and sharp. And thought and for weapons can break bodies, but fear, memory, and morale can break fleets.